In this video, we'll be learning how to identify the x-intercept and the y-intercept of a linear graph by looking at the graph visually. So we'll be able to visually see these and identify these without having to do any calculations. So before we can start visually identifying x and y-intercepts, we need to actually define what an x-intercept and what a y-intercept actually are. So by definition, an x-intercept is the coordinate point where the graph crosses the x-axis. So we know that the x-axis is the horizontal number line right here. And so when we're talking about the x-intercept point, we're talking about a coordinate. So note, this is a coordinate point where we cross the x-axis, which is right here. So if I look at my line in purple, I can see that the coordinate point where I cross the x-axis is right here. And the coordinate here at this point that I just plotted occurs when x is 1, 2, 3, and y is 0. So in the case of this example, our x-intercept point is occurring at the coordinate x is 3, y is 0. So if we were to identify that, we would say that this is our answer, the full coordinate point. Now, if we flip gears a little bit, let's talk about the y-intercept. So the y-intercept has a very similar definition. It's just the point on the graph where we cross the y-axis. So the y-intercept by definition is the coordinate point where the graph crosses the y-axis. And remember, the y-axis is our vertical number line right here going up and down. So again, if we look at our purple line, if we look for the coordinate where the purple line crosses the y-axis, we can see that that coordinate is occurring right here. And now if I identify this coordinate, I can see my x value is 0 and my y value is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the coordinate point, or the y-intercept for this particular graph where I cross the y-axis is x is 0, y is 4. So let's try another example here. So here I see a different line. Remember my x-intercept, in order to find my x-intercept, I'm going to look for the point where we cross the x-axis. So I'm going to focus on this horizontal number line here. And I look and I see that I'm crossing the x-axis right here at this point. So my x-coordinate is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And my y-coordinate, because I don't go up and down, is 0. So our x-intercept point for this graph is 7, 0. Now, my y-intercept is going to be where I cross the y-axis. So again, I need to make sure I take a look at the y-axis, and that's going to be this vertical number line here. So if I look, my x-coordinate, I don't move left or right. So my x-coordinate for this coordinate that I see right here, where I cross the y-axis, my x-coordinate doesn't move left or right, so it's 0, and my y-coordinate is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here, my x-coordinate is 0, y-coordinate is 6. So let's take a look at another example here. Again, remember, x-intercept occurs at the x-axis. So here we're looking for the coordinate where we cross the x-axis. Our x-coordinate is 1, 2, 3, 4. And our y-coordinate doesn't move up or down, so it's simply 0. So our x-intercept point here is x is 4, y is 0. Then if we take a look at our y-intercept point, which is right here where we cross the y-axis, our y-intercept point is going to be when x is 0 because we don't move left or right, and our y value is a -1. So let's take a look at one last example here. When I take a look at this example and I go to look for the x-intercept, what I notice is that this line in purple here never actually seems to cross the x-axis. While it's not super common, there are lines that will never cross the x-axis because they are parallel to them. And the same thing goes for the y-axis. There will be lines that do not cross the y-axis. So if you notice that that happens, that there is no x-intercept point because it never crosses the x-axis, you can simply write that there is none, because there isn't one. There is no point where this purple line is going to cross the x-axis, and therefore there is no x-intercept. Now if we look for the y-intercept, we do notice here that we do cross the y-axis. So we cross the y-axis right here. And that occurs when x is 0 and y is -3.